afternoon, everybody. It's Coffee and Politics Online, and today I am doing an impromptu interview with Randall Bryant. Thank you for coming back.
Second one.
Yes. So if you don't remember, he was on discussing redistricting around the census, and so he is the president of the DART board. And of course, I reached out to him, and I'm like, when are we going to talk about this?
That's right.
And he was like,
ASAP.
Yes, because I told him my schedule. He's like, oh, the election's going to be gone by then. I wasn't even thinking that. I was just thinking from a global standpoint of discussing DART, and someone who grew up here, you know, you have seen the changes. You've seen the expansion of 635. You've seen the expansion of 75. And one thing I will definitely say is, being in a metropolis, I don't feel like I'm in a metropolis.
Right.
Because you go to Chicago, you go to DC, you go to Seattle, you go to Portland, you are not thinking about taking a car. That is not your first thought.
Right.
Your first thought is, where's the bus station? Where's the train station? Let me get the schedule. Let me plan my itinerary.
Right.
Dave, the guy that lived in Evanston, I loved it in Chicago. He was like, you want me to drop you? No, I'm on the train. I got a backpack on. I'm on the train. I'm ready to go.
That's right.
And so it seems like a big missing here, big opportunity, not a missing, an opportunity for Dallas to definitely do more when it comes to public transportation. So I want you to discuss, being the new board president, and what that is for you.
Yep.
And just go ahead and tell the viewers that.
Welcome. I'll welcome you all back because I've been here before. But let's first acknowledge we are pulling into our Shiloh station on the brand new Silver Line. Just opened at the end of October. $2 billion project that goes 26 miles from Plano to DFW Airport in about 1 hour, a little less than an hour. DFW Airport is now the first and only airport in the country that has 2 commuter entry points and a light rail. So Orange Line connects now the Silver Line as well as Tex Rail, the only airport in the country. And kind of to your question, you know, DART is a very young system when you compare to those other systems, those cities and those systems you bring up. And we've done a lot in 42 short years. We built the second largest light rail system in the country. I think 2 things kind of have happened. One, you know, southwest part of the country, we are very car centric.
Very much so.
We've also tried to develop the density and create that mindset and cultivate that mindset after the mindset of car centric was first, right?
Yes.
And then even with the light rail system itself, we've tried to do it the more economic route, which is use right of way that already existed and convert it into the light rail model using the train tracks that were already there, which don't always go to the most guaranteed destinations.
Employment centers is what I'm thinking, you know, because being someone who has worked in Irvine and Grapevine and Plano, I tried taking DART. It was 2 hours, and I'm just going to represent most people. Traffic was 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. 2 hours commuting, I'm going to opt for my car.
But we've seen it other ways too, right?
Yeah.
We had the city council meeting in Plano a couple weeks ago. I looked at my phone. I live downtown, right off of the St. Paul station.
Yes.
I looked at my phone. It said 55-minute drive, you know, out of downtown up to Plano, and it said 42-minute, you know, direct shot. It's right off of the City Hall, 2-minute walk, and we're there, right? And so we see instances where it's very convenient.
Right.
The American Airlines Center, right? We had a lot of forethought. We just left the Bush City Line Bush, right?
Yes.
A double track system where you can easily get on and get off. And so we're trying to build it at the same time, and you know, it takes a while for development, and development happens. Sometimes you develop it and then it's too late, right? And so we're trying to kind of be forward thinking in the development portions of the system. and then accommodate for future growth and development, working with our cities as well. And so it's kind of a give and take.
Okay.
I think when you look at the first Transit 1.0, so to speak, in
Right.
the first promises that were made in 1983 when we had the original cities. I think with the Silver Line, we've built the majority of the infrastructure projects that we intended to build, with that first vision 40 years ago. And I think now it's how do we, account for next growth.
Yeah.
We still own right of way up to Sherman. They've just, built a 3,000 job manufacturing plant for the chips with TI.
Yes.
That would run through McKinney, where there's an airport, a 20,000 seated amphitheater. You have Duncanville and Cedar Hill, to the south, and so we have options of where to go to next. I think that's where the main focus should be right now versus cities thinking about
pulling out.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, for me, just being a user, being a resident, and saying, I don't want to be in a personal vehicle.
Yeah.
That I want to do public transportation because it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Commuting every day to and from work. I know Jim Schultz, and nobody commented when I made this comment, as he was talking about New York and a friend of his that would take the train or the bus, the subway, to an opera. Who cares?
Right.
I'm sorry. That's all well and good. We can all do public transportation when we're going to the state fair.
Right.
My children and I, we would take the train to go to North Park, to go to the movies, all that great stuff. But everyday travel.
Correct.
I grew up with that mentality that public transportation was to get you to and from your places that you need to go to all the time.
Correct.
And you tell me this because you're there. You're on the board.
Yeah.
I see a conflict with the toll roads and pulling people off of the roads and into public transportation, mass transit, will decrease their usage.
Yeah.
But isn't that what we want to go towards as the population in the DFW, not just Dallas, Fort Worth as well, all the surrounding cities? It's going to do nothing but grow.
Yeah. So the warning signs are there.
Okay. I like that you call it warning signs.
The warning signs are there, and it's gaining more and more traction. We know just the broad statistics of how many people are moving to DFW DFW region every day, every week, every month. Every day.
Right.
TxDOT put out an article in the Texas Tribune about a month ago. The king of highways, even they said, we're going to need more mass transit to keep up with this growing
the population growth.
Correct.
Yes.
I want to say TxDOT put out a deal that said, the average American or the average driver's accounts for about $1,600 per year that they're losing just driving. Right. Parking at DFW Airport is $32 a day when you can go straight into the airport. Multiple ways, either from the north or the south. Into the airport. We even saw on Thanksgiving Eve, just a pile on of traffic, trying to get in, and the delays for that. And so it's reaching a boiling point, and I think that we as DART, need to do our best to educate people on, hey, save $32 a day and take a $3 train directly into the airport, from a park and ride station or wherever you are in the region. But also, the longer it takes to get people, to and from work, that hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a day that they're spending in their car, the amount of money
that's wasted time.
Right, and it's reaching a breaking point, and hopefully, DART can sustain itself in this moment and continue to build out the system, so that we are prepared when it does break. Because again, anyone that knows about planning for the future in this region are, whether that's at COG, whether that's at TxDOT, whether that's at DART, we are sounding the alarm, and people need to really wake up and understand, you know, the 5 or 10 years we are away from it.
Yeah, it is going to be an unsustainable system, and I'm just going to put my plug in here for train makers and also buses. You know me. I'm going to want a treadmill.
You want a treadmill on the train?
I want a Peloton on the train.
Yeah,
so I
right.
can go ahead. Well, and that's the thing. You know, we have come up in that information system, so it's multitask.
Right.
So I personally would love to get my fitness in
while
I'm on the train.
Yeah.
I mean, to have the ability to do some stretching, yoga. I mean, I've meditated. Just to take advantage of that time because one, we're not at a place where we're seeing our neighbors on public transportation. So we're having that human interaction with people in real time, real life, not through a device.
Right.
But I would love something
I
like
think
that.
we have to do our best job. I don't want to say a better job, but just our best job of creating buzz and excitement. Transportation transit is very engineer driven. It's very X's and O's. It's very data driven.
It's not sexy.
It's not the coolest thing,
No.
to think about.
No,
right?
it's not.
But we have to tell people, hey, look, DART offers 5 modes of transportation: the commuter rail system, the light rail system, buses, microtransit, or GoLink, as well as paratransit. Right?
Yes.
And for the vast majority of all 13 cities we operate in, you can just take about every mode of transportation in every city just about that we operate in. And so, when you're trying to just think about, okay, I'm here, I need to get there, right? We know for a fact that two-thirds of our riders are at or below the poverty line. This is their only way to get there, right?
Yes.
And post-COVID, we've done a great job above agency, industry, and standards of recapturing that group of people. Right?
Okay, great.
We've captured about 80% of our pre-COVID numbers.
Okay.
That final 20% that we haven't fully recaptured yet are those that have multiple transportation options, right? And it's, how do we figure out a better way to position DART to be their first option or one of the top options that they choose? And in Dallas, we're fortunate to have many options. Of course, if you do have a vehicle, we have scooters, we have bicycles, we have the public transit. So we have a lot of options here,
you can
right?
Uber, ride share, you can do all of those things.
Yeah, and they're all, generally speaking, integrated quite well, right?
Yes.
And so, I think destination-based, attractions, we talked about State Fair, the American Airlines Center, ensuring that we are going in high frequent intervals during the times that make the most sense to those attractions helps with that. But also, post-COVID, the long haulers to and from downtown just aren't there any longer, right?
Right.
People are still working from home.
Yes.
People are working less days in office, even if they are in the office, right? And so that's, generally speaking, that 20% group that we have not recaptured in a post-COVID world. Right?
Okay.
But that first group, we're leaps and bounds as far as comparison to industry standards of where we are in a post-COVID world.
Now, I know there were some challenges. There was a board meeting with the paratransit. Has that been worked out? Because I know people were very vocal about rates going up.
Right.
And this being their primary mode of transportation and them having to look at their budgets and say, how am I going to make this work?
I'm glad you actually brought that up. So, when we were back during that time talking about paratransit, it was around the possibility for service changes and fare changes for the entire system. And we were, trying to accommodate this TMP to give money back to 7 cities, about $42.5 million. And so what we did was, we conducted a series of public hearings with the community in all 13 cities, and we, showcased various options of what the board would consider. We obviously didn't want to say, we are looking at a deficit or a shortfall, and these are the only options, because what's the point of a public hearing?
Right.
And so the messaging wasn't best because we showcased more than what the board would actually implement, but we didn't want to showcase only one option because then there was no consideration, right?
Right.
And so the public, and it wasn't their fault, but they thought all the things were the realities. When it was like, these are the vast, these are the varying, options that the board can consider, and ultimately they will choose which things to implement. For the paratransit, the main two considerations was a reduction of service from the entire region, which is what we currently, what we had before and what we still currently maintain. And then the federal mandate, which is only provide paratransit services within 3/4 of a mile of fixed services. So what are fixed services? Trains and buses, right? Okay. So the federal law says we only have to provide paratransit services within 3/4 of a mile of a fixed service. So you could take a bus or whatever to a bus stop, let's call it.
Okay, so that's where the Gold Link comes in.
Correct.
To
the paratransit, correct.
Okay.
And so DART goes above and beyond the mandate, the minimum requirements, and we provide it across the entire region. Okay. So number one, that was an option to reduce that service from the system-wide to 3/4 of a mile.
Okay.
In addition to that, it was to increase fares for that area that's no longer covered to make up for the difference. And so prior to that, the DART board had about 7 years ago approved a rate increase of 56.
Yes, they did.
From $3 to $3.50.
Yes.
We approved that 7 years ago.
Y'all didn't remember, I was advertising that back in 2018, and I was going to those meetings. I didn't see people there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
and side note, my father is a paratransit user. My father is 90% blind, 100% dependent on DART for 30 some odd years, right? So paratransit is something that's very near and dear to me. And he came down and spoke on the issue too.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
He lives in Rowlett. He would have been in a zone that's outside of the 3/4, and he would have been spending $10. So this is not something that I just take very lightly. This is very.
You have real experience.
Absolutely.
With it.
And even before joining the board, like I've been a co-pastor with him on the paratransit services, and so 7 years ago we approved the 50-cent increase, but it did not take effect until this year. The implementation of it was delayed 7 years, right?
Gotcha.
And what we've seen is, one, the paratransit drivers don't carry change. So if you pay with $4 or you pay with $5, right, you're not getting any change back.
Right.
Okay, so that's an issue, a bit of an issue. And so we kind of very quickly saw that, right? And this is kind of all culminated at the same time, unfortunately. But it was like, we need to go to a whole dollar to deal with this change
to minimize
issue.
that.
Right. Okay.
And now, do you want to bring up debit cards and swiping those on the buses as well? So, because that's something that you guys did as well. So please continue.
So we were like, we need to go to a whole dollar pretty quickly to deal with this change discrepancy.
Okay.
And so we had we had approved 7 years ago. It finally got implemented this year, and so obviously the next whole dollar is $4, and then $5, and so on. And so the first recommendation from staff was $5. I felt like, again, using my dad as a personal experience, that a jump again would be that great would be too much. Okay?
Yes.
And so we did agree on $4, but we also agreed to set off that implementation for another 2 years. Right?
Okay.
So over a 9-year period, paratransit fees will go up $1.
Okay.
Essentially, now it would be, that dollar would be over a 3-year period, or 2.5-year period, but over the entire 9 years, as far as approvals and implementation, it would be one. Right. It would be $1. I'm not discounting what a dollar is, right? But I think there was a time when it was advertised $10 for a specific group of people that lived outside of 3/4.
Yes.
And there was a time when it was $5 to address this 50-cent issue. And I think people are kind of running all of that together as far as what the impacts on paratransit is. But right now it's $3.50. The next increase will be to $4, and it will be sometime between now and 2 years from now.
Okay. All right. So there you have it.
That's a lot of information.
It's a lot of information, but it's also good to know. And thank you so much for letting people know that it hasn't been implemented yet.
Correct.
Although the meetings have been held and people have expressed their feelings about it, both positive and negative, that it hasn't been fully implemented yet.
Right.
So those changes are to come. But as I tell people all the time, number one, our elected officials are able to make recommendations to put members of the community on boards. This is why elections are so important.
Absolutely.
And city council plays a huge role in DART in making these nominations. And if there's not a mayor's race, we are talking about less than 5% for some districts turning out. District 7 being one of them. That is sad. And I know that there were some people in my community that have been upset with some of the route changes. And
yeah, that's for my time.
Yes.
No, I mean,
and I know the old numbers. I'm
right.
a 7 Hardwood girl, and I missed that bus because it was right there.
Right.
But it's convenient to take public transportation.
Yeah.
So I know with all of the news, and people have been so focused on public safety. Number one, I don't know about you, but me growing up in South Dallas and being my grandmother's child and whatnot, I was always prepared to go outside
right,
and be aware
right.
of my surroundings.
Correct.
And not look like a target.
Right.
Number one. And I know people have been very vocal about DPD and we need more police officers, yada, yada, yada. And now the attention is being switched over to DART and the crime that we're seeing at the DART stations.
Yep.
And a lot of people have very negative opinions about public transportation that is completely independent of any of that.
Sure. That's a good point.
Because public transportation, for some reason in the South, is seen as a poor person's transportation.
Correct.
Versus the cities that I've mentioned who are older and more mature.
Everyone, right? The Wall Street banker and
your CEOs, they
all
take
it.
public transportation. It's
Right.
not a thought around that. And so for me, just being an outsider and looking at, I work somewhere in Plano, Legacy. I want to take public transportation. I don't want to ride. I used to work at Cigna, right off the toll road. I had to drive every day.
Yeah.
I wanted to take public transportation.
Yeah.
And so the mindset that we have here is being very car-centric.
Yeah.
How are we going to address that attitude along with the realities of some of the issues that we have with public transportation and safety?
So let me first start off by saying I grew up on the DART system.
Right.
You talked about being a target, right?
Yes.
I remember opening day in 1996. I was 9 years old, right? And
then you're such a baby.
And then really from then on, though, almost every weekend, every other weekend. This is before the extinction of the Red Line, but I grew up in Hamilton Park. You know this. My grandmother lived in Oak Cliff. I would get dropped off by my great grandparents at the Park Lane station with a little bag or suitcase or backpack at 9, 10, 11 years old on the train the entire time. Yeah. No one thought twice about my safety, right? No. And so, number one, we're living in different times than then, right? Just more globally and regionally. But I think also there are just perceptions of what's happening on our system that are just put out by the media every day that just aren't true, right? We know, and they know, that crime is down on this system. Double
crime
digits.
is down overall.
Yeah. But crimes against persons, crimes against properties are both down on the system, double digits over the last year. And we've been kind of successful in this because we've hired 100 new TSO officers. Okay. So at DART we have kind of 3 levels of uniformed police presence. Okay. We have FEOs, or fair enforcement officers. They basically check and write tickets, right?
Yeah, checking for your ticket when you're on the train. I've seen them.
Make sure you get one. Yes. The third level, I'll skip the second one, but the third level are DART police, right? And they both, that first level and third level, actually DART employees. Okay. Okay. The second level are what's called TSO officers, or transit security officers. They're TCO licensed. They carry, a gun and handcuffs. They can detain, but they cannot actually book. Okay. They can arrest someone and take them. Correct. Yeah. So they can detain until DART police arrive. Shows up. Okay. Okay. Side note: DART is the second highest user of loose area jail behind any other municipality in this county. Okay, we're booking more.
Y'all hear that?
Right.
Y'all hear that?
we book more individuals second only to the city of Dallas. Okay, we've booked over 2,700 individuals this year. We've removed over 100,000 people from the system for various petty infractions this year. What we've seen though is through working with the county, because we're trying to really address this issue, is that the average number of those 2,700 arrests and bookings that we've seen, those individuals are arrested by either DART or various municipalities for almost the exact same crimes on average 4 times.
Really?
And we're putting them in the system, and as fast as we're putting them in, they're getting bonded and coming right back out. Taking DART right back to, right? And so they need other services other than DART, but also other than what the county jail is providing to them. They need actual services. They don't need a ride on the system every day. They need actual wraparound services to deal with them. And we're working diligently on this.
So what are kind of some of these issues that you guys
mental health, of course, unhoused populations, because what's that number that people are kind of pointing to, that dark crime is up, or what's we've kind of categorized as crimes against society. It's drug usage on the system
in public places.
Right. It's the vagrancy issues. It's those public intoxication.
The people that the unsightliness that people don't necessarily.
That's up, but again, going back to, it's up, but it's up because the reports are up. And the reports are because we have more uniform presence on the system that's addressing
So it's just information being captured more efficiently that we're actually seeing those numbers.
That is exactly
in real time, whereas before we weren't seeing those numbers.
Exactly.
Okay.
So when people say crime is up, I'm saying that the crime that's actually up, it's a good thing, right? We are addressing it at high numbers, and really kind of the next phase of that is, and I laid this out on October 28th, when I did my chairman's address when I was elected chair of the board, which I laid out 5 goals, which was 1, to deal with these cities on governance and funding. 2 was actually crime and safety, because what I'm trying to do is implement another 100 TSO officers so that we can have a trained security officer on every train station, on every train platform, and every train car during all hours of operations. So that we can have even greater police presence on our system. And because we've seen the effects of that first 100 police officers, or trained security officers. So if we can keep the DART police where they are in response to crimes, the fair enforcement officers continuously checking the fares, and then strategically utilize these TSOs so that we can help deter crime on one end, but also better position ourselves through the perception of what the crimes and the stigmas of DART are, then that is kind of going back to how we can recapture that 20%. Because when that group of people feel like, I can go to the American Airlines Center, and that way I don't have to deal with parking and traffic, it's a direct shot, and I know I can go and return safely because I'm seeing someone the entire time when I'm on the platform. I see someone there. When I board the system, I'm here, and I feel more safe, right? And so we are trying to address it, safety and crime, from that perspective, hoping that those barriers will be decreased and those stigmas will be decreased as well. Because again, the actual crime itself, the numbers are going down, and it will and those additional uniform presence officers will help reduce those numbers as well as increase the stigma outcomes.
So I'm gonna flip the script on that, because my adage is, if everyday users, commuters for work and whatnot, if we were really using public transportation, you wouldn't have the space.
If this thing was packed the entire time, nobody would feel comfortable doing things that they should not be doing.
And that's 100%. And there just wouldn't be the capacity, the room for people to just kind of lounge on public transportation because of whatever issue that they're dealing with. And we all know that the city of Dallas has been working to manage the homeless population and passing ordinances and state passing laws. But overall, I take my safety as a personal achievement that I'm responsible for. It's great that you're going to have more officers, but as Changa said, because I go run, and I run at all hours, and most of the time it's in the evening. I have been seen out in the streets running at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, running through downtown, the convention center, and I am not nervous about anything.
Absolutely.
But I also have something on my hip. I also took karate. So if someone approaches me, I'm just not going to be in that space of, oh my gosh, where is the officer to... I'm going to be calling after I've handled the problem.
Right.
And that's just, I want to say that's a Gen X thing.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I grew up on the system. I did an interview at MLK Station yesterday, and I showed up, and people were like, oh, you brought the system? Absolutely.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm from Dallas. These are my people. I'm not going to ever be afraid of the community that create the person you're looking at right now, right?
Right.
These are, regardless if they, what status or statue that they have, right? But I also understand, like, everyone's not equipped with that, and I'm great we've recaptured you in that 20%. There's a whole nother 19.99999 group of people that are a little
they're not ready to knock.
They're a little uneasy when they see, a thing or two happening, and we're trying to be sensitive to all the diaspora of crime sensitivities.
Yes. But I will say that if you want your city to be safer, then you have to lead the charge with making your city safer. Right. And I have also called out to people to volunteer with your police departments to help them out, because yes, of course, we would love to have a police officer or some type of law enforcement officer on every corner, everywhere we go, but that is completely unrealistic. And we have to do a better job at making sure that all of us are safe and be the model of what we want to see. Right. So with that, changing that mindset and that perception is start looking at driving more services for, the everyday commuter going to and from work that is not downtown located. Right. It is in the suburbs. Yep. It's in Frisco, it's Plano, McKinney, Addison, those places. So is there a push to start working diligently to get people out of their cars?
Yeah. So let me kind of break that up into a few little chunks here. So I think that if you go back to the 1983, and thank God we have Walt Heumann still around to at least pick the brain. He's probably forgot more than we've ever accumulated.
He's a jewel.
But and Walt did the desegregation of Dallas ISD. Walt did the writing of Central Expressway. I mean, Fair Park. I mean, it's been great.
Yes.
The early renditions and thought process of Dallas, and then so many of the suburbs to the north, right? Regardless of population size, because you at that time had suburbs to the south that had more population as far as the people in the north.
Right.
But what you had in the north at the time, and still prevalent to today, were the jobs.
Yes.
You had the manufacturing, the blue collar, the commercial, the industrial jobs that were in Addison and Carrollton and Plano and Irving, right? And you had a large concentration of working class individuals in the city of Dallas. Yes. I think we need to kind of pause right there for just 1 second.
Okay.
Not necessarily me and you, but we can do it to make the point. But for everyone that's kind of focusing on this conversation right now, when they say, well, what is it for my residents? What is this thing? Well, unless you're talking about your residents trying to get access to these jobs, right? Because for your residents, it was getting them downtown.
Exactly.
To the towers, right? So it was like this moving back and forth, right?
And for people who may not remember, back in the 90s, all the buses converged in downtown, and you made your transfers, and then you went out to your final destination. So.
Yeah, so that was kind of the idea, was move a large group of blue-collar workers to these blue-collar jobs, move from various cities, white-collar workers to where the white collar jobs were downtown, right?
Right.
And we talked about this earlier, kind of like where this has lost a little bit, right?
Right.
But this still exists, and these people here still have to get there.
Yes.
So some of the cities we talk about, the McKinneys, the Duncanvilles, the Cedar Hills, right? We can, and we do, have corridor study plans that are happening right now.
Okay, good.
To look at, what the next iteration for the Silver Line. I talked about some of the right of way that exists right now and some that we own.
Yes.
But again, we should always be talking about jobs and job connectors for mass transit in DFW Airport before we talk about what's best for my residents, so to speak, as far as dollar in, dollar out for only my residents. Because, you look at, where Silver Line now stops in Addison, right? I mean, Addison is a pour in of people daily for those commercial jobs, but also on the weekend for the Addison nightlife, right? Their economy is built on bringing
people,
in, correct, right?
Yes, the import of people.
Which is why when they looked at the withdrawal election, they said, no, absolutely not, right?
Thank you, Addison.
Shout out to Addison.
Right, thank you. Thank you, because you saw that it made sense.
Right, and they built the Addison Circle around the Silver Line coming, right? They built, and so we've kind of seen where we've put in, look at Carrollton, where we put in, or even Farmers Branch, where we put in the Green Line, and then the sprawling development happened afterwards, right? Yes. But in Addison, it kind of happened the other way. They put the development in, waiting for the Silver Line to come in, right? And so it works both ways, but you have to do one thing: plan, right? You have to plan for the future, and so that's kind of where we're at right now, is trying to plan out. I think a lot of cities right now are thinking about microtransit as some solution, when microtransit actually, and this is what we do at Darden, what hopefully they would be doing if they were standing them up, which is microtransit is not a long-term solution.
No.
It just puts more cars on the roads. But you can use microtransit to find hotspots where people gathering in large numbers, moving from destination to destination, and then create your fixed routes based on that, right?
So, and I want to, just from some experience, again, Frisco, Little Lamb, Plano, that whole corridor, and knowing, so I have tons of friends that live out in those areas, and they still work in those areas, and that micro transit system sounds great for them, but I'm like, just work with DART to get the service there for your people to get to and from their jobs. Right. It just doesn't make sense that in 2026, really, we're still very car centric, car heavy, and I get, car dealerships and whatnot will feel a pinch because of that, but I'm not saying people are going to completely give up their cars, because when I go to buy stuff in bulk, I'm not trying to do that on the bus.
Sure.
Or a train.
Right, and that's why I say you have multiple options.
Right.
It's kind of funny though, when these cities are looking at other options, not even just the DART cities, right? Take for example our Go Pass. Our Go Pass that DART developed the entire technology for it. 14 other transit agencies in the state use our Go Pass platform.
Really?
You look at...
So y'all build technology that other cities are taking advantage of.
Absolutely. Other transit agencies are taking advantage. I mean, now...
Go DART.
See what I'm saying?
Go DART.
You look at the city of Plano right now, they're looking at 3 vendors for their microtransit solution. One of them is a DART vendor right now, right? So, these companies, these cities are looking at all these other options, but they're going to somehow use parts of or the best of what
DART
the
is
foundation
already
of DART. Correct. Right.
Yeah.
And so, I think that when you talk about building out, that was the question. We're looking at how to make the system better in the cities that we're serving.
Right.
But you also got to think, and I think this is actually a good thing. And I said this earlier, we don't offer all 5 modes of transportation in every city. Right.
And you don't expect to.
Right. Some cities don't want certain things. Some cities don't want rail. right? And we built the system very early on without the rail in some cities. Now they won't talk about the fact that we actually compensate them back parts of their money because they don't have the rail. They'll never talk about that part.
No.
That they've, some cities have gotten
millions.
We've refunded over $500 million to all 13 cities since 1983.
Oh wow!
Over $500 million has gone back
money.
to our 13 cities. Every city has gotten some money back. A total of over $500 million has been allocated back to our cities since day one. Nobody talks about that.
No.
Right.
Gosh, because I'm sitting here thinking that number and saying, oh my gosh, what could you have done to make DART bigger and better? Number one. But two, because you can take the DART trains and hook up with the T-line in Fort Worth, and literally Denton is becoming, and that was something I didn't see coming.
Yeah.
Was Denton being a hotbed for?
We're trying to figure out how to connect the A train to the Green Line,
and have all of those agencies really operate under one umbrella and work in concert with each other, because it's getting to the point of you may live in Dallas County, but you work in Tarrant or Collin or vice versa. And I even see it so far as going where we're eventually, and I know some people get nervous behind this, but with the 5-county area, it almost makes sense to explore having voting done at any county. Yes. Because I've run into voters who wanted to vote in Dallas, and it's like, well, you really need to go back home and vote. But it just, that is a huge point to hear that much money being given back.
Right.
When I'm thinking, what could we have done with that?
Right. And I think it's something very much to contemplate. You look at this Silver Line, which was a $2 billion project in 2025. That was the total number, right?
Yes.
A capital project could have been another capital project to a, let's call it, a fourth magnitude, could have been up and going by now.
Yes, because I was part of that D2 movement. The subway, yes! You knew I was going to bring that up, because that would have been the coolest thing.
Yeah.
You talk, but one, you have to think about the structure under our lovely streets in Dallas and all the clay and bedrock and whatnot.
Right.
And that does present some challenges, but if we are going to play that game of we're a big sophisticated city.
Yeah. Well, I think, it stands to reason, because it was more or less to take capacity off of the light rail system to kind of get trains in and out faster through the CBD.
Central Business
The Central Business District. And so, it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but I think, when we talk about connectivity, Dallas promotes itself to have the largest arts district in either the country or the world, right? There's nothing that through transit that connects Perot to DMA to Fair Park, which is right? And so, ensuring proper connectivity with what we have, right? The D2 subway would have been great. We didn't fund it. It got reappropriated, so fine.
So hopefully it'll come back.
Right, but there are streetcar concepts from the convention center to East Dallas.
Yes.
South Dallas. Right.
Yes, along MLK,
Correct.
connecting Fair Park.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those are the things, and I think like right now, in the moment that we're in, we need a new kind of shiny object to chase after that helps the entire region.
Okay.
Or pieces of different expansion projects that help the entire region, so that DART can kind of refocus itself. The 13 current member cities can refocus itself on the next version of DART. Have some serious conversations with cities, either at a full penny, if DART figures out a way with our current cities to reduce the penny, that conversation, or do contracts with those cities, because again, it has to make sense for the city as well as the current cities and and DART for any expansion, right? I think we've tried to kind of push the square peg through a round hole with any next versions of Dart, because that's the one we started with, right? And I think that's been the greatest, limiting barrier for entry for any new cities, because it's like, well, these cities came in under this precept, and so everyone must from then on. And there are many ways to structure a deal, right? The city structure deals all types of ways each and every day. It's like we turned that mindset off when it came to Dart.
It's like having a prenup and then a post. You can always change things.
Right.
Yeah, negotiations happen all the time.
Yeah.
I would really like to see the corporations really come to the table and help fight with Dart to get the transportation needed for their employees to take advantage of. And I know some corporations, especially along Walnut Hill, have promoted, taking the Dart train because the stops are there. And we just need to have more of those hubs that have a big pouring in of people commuting in to take what just makes sense. It's public transportation. And I know from, because I used to work in Irving off of 114 in MacArthur, a lot of Southwest employees would hop off of that train and walk right on over. And it's like, where I work, huge parking lot, wasted space, huge parking lot, had a Dart stop literally right in front of there. And I think there were maybe 5 people.
Well, and on the parking lots, right? I think Dart had some infinite wisdom. I don't think we knew then what we knew now, but we have potential TOD prospects across the entire region. TOD is a transit-oriented development.
Okay.
And so the idea and concept again about density, creating density around kind of self-sustaining areas, where there's ground floor retail, there's maybe office spaces, maybe not. And then the residential, on top of it. And we see it in those cities you brought up earlier, right? So you create the density around it, and then, of course, if someone needs transportation, you have a lot of the needs for the communities right there.
Right.
But just in case there's a need for someone to go outside of that community, right? Then Dart is right there. Again, just for me, I literally look outside of my window, I see the Dart train, right? The station is catty corner to the corner the corner block that I live on, and so I can on a Saturday afternoon and Sunday. That's when I normally take Dart the most often, because really, other than that, I'm at home or walking around downtown. It's, Dart is fortunately 2 blocks away from me, right?
Yes.
And so I think we have to kind of start retooling the way we're developing in all of our cities, starting with Dallas, of course, because it is the hub.
Right.
The suburbs are the spokes, so to speak. And so creating these TODs, we see it at Mockingbird.
Yes.
Right. We just broke ground on Palladium at Buckner.
Okay.
And so creating, utilizing these acres of parking ride opportunities that we have at those centers.
That was big for Park Lane when that station happened there. Yes.
And so moving forward with those, we have all of these parking structures or parking lots that are underutilized, that we own, that we can do ground leases with, develop them, and then create the surges of new ridership with those individuals that with the next couple of years will come in. That's going to create more ad valorem taxes for the cities. It's going to create, obviously, with the ground floor retail, more sales taxes for the cities. And, even those numbers don't properly get accounted for when people ask, well, what's the value of Dart? Or what's the value of transit, right? And only thinking about it, my residents, or 1% of my residents use it, and 99% don't. Well, 1% of your residents don't call the fire department every year, or the police department every year, right? Does it mean we don't need them? Does it mean we do away with them? Right. 1%, 99% don't use the library system, right? Does it mean we do away with them? No.
Right, no, but the thing is that when you start having it there, it starts to develop that kind of culture.
Correct.
And community that will then start thinking, oh, let me take Dart. let me
Right.
get on the train, the bus. Oh, yeah.
When it's right there and it's available and it's clean and it's safe and it's getting you exactly where you want to go and you're not waiting an hour out in the heat or in the cold. Yes. And so I think that's kind of the positioning that we're trying to take right now.
Okay.
And create those markets ourselves instead of kind of waiting on the development from the developers outside. We have, I believe 60 some odd stations. Not all of them really qualify. Like St. Paul. St. Paul doesn't have a parking lot.
Right.
And some of them are developed. City Line Bush is a great example. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's controversial. Somebody might not want me to talk about it, but that's okay. The EY report, right? The EY report that some cities are using to show an imbalance of the amount of money that they're putting in versus what they're getting out. And one of the cities that the EY report showed was getting less out, so to speak, versus what they were putting in is the city of Richardson. But you don't see the city of Richardson calling for these elections based upon that report because they're like, we would not have that technology corridor up and down Central Expressway had not it been for the DART system that came in and our forward thinking of building out the Renaissance Hotel and State Farm and all those, the Drury Hotel, right, without knowing that the DART system was coming in and the economic development
that results
exactly
from it.
Right. So those numbers obviously weren't captured in this EY report, but they're also not top of mind when people talk about DART and what is the value of DART to their city. And I think, again, you're only thinking about it from a ridership perspective, well, then you're only going to get ridership data out of it. But when you think about transit opportunity, the entire economic, right?
That comes about.
Yeah. With UNT North Texas put out a report that said DART has stimulated over $18 billion worth of economic development since its inception, right?
Right.
Where is that accounted for in the thought process of do I stay within DART or do I leave DART?
And here's one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that when Dallas was started as a city and the Jewish community and really everybody lived in that area of downtown, which we know of today with the public library and City Hall. And there was a train that came in through there because of the Butler building and the manufacturing that happened there, Piggly Wiggly being around the corner. And then as growth happened south, the trolley brought people south. Colonial Hill, Queen City. South Dallas came to be because of a public transportation system, and people lived and worked in proximity to their jobs, and they took the public transportation because it was readily available. And just to think of all of the development that happened in South Dallas as a result of that, I think for us it makes sense that would occur when you have transit bringing people in and out. Like, okay, I saw the Whole Foods sign, and I'm saying, okay, yeah, when we get back to that, I'm going to Whole Foods, because it was on my list of to do things. Well, I'm just gonna go there and do some shopping while I'm there, because. And here's the thing, DART brought it. Yeah.
Well, and going back to, we talk about the influx of people. Where are they coming from? We have this Y'all Street, the Texas Stock Exchange. We're expecting those people to come from New York, come from Chicago. They're going to come to Dallas and say, now, how do I get to uptown?
Y'all don't have. Oh, no. Even bigger. FIFA.
Yeah.
And all of the international people that are going to be coming here that are accustomed, they don't even think car. They think public transportation. And we're having to make accommodations for that. Do we need to do
Oh, we got some riders.
All right.
Hey, look, this is live. We are on an actual
DART train. We are on the Silver
real.
Line
this
train.
Is real.
So if you have not gotten on the Silver Line, please do.
This is no security. This is no personal escorts. This is real life.
And I have my tripod with my Mevo camera, And we were rolling when we started, and I was like, oh my gosh, my camera is like not budging. This is
the Stadler Rolls Royce. We're gonna call it the Stadler Rolls
yes.
Royce. Stadler is a German company. This is the top of the line. Ask anyone in the industry, there is no greater commuter train than the one that we have at Dart right now.
And this is also a plug for my heritage, because I've only really driven German automobiles. I know how fine they are.
But we have luggage racks up top.
Yes.
Because this train is obviously going to DFW Airport.
But it's accommodating passengers getting to and from where they need to get to.
Absolutely.
So, I have been wanting to have Dart on for years, even with the whole D2 and the subway push and all of that great stuff. And I was just like, when are y'all going to come on? And nobody came on. But I guess I was waiting on you to on that board to come and talk about this. So this has been a great conversation, Randall.
I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it because for us to be a metropolis and to grow and to support the growth that we are having and will continue to have, we're going to have to get out of our heads and out of the perception that public transportation is not the way to go.
See, I'm going to go and change the word right there. We don't have to stop saying public transportation, but the word that I use is mass transportation. Because in Texas right now, public is under attack. Public education, public housing, public assistance, public transportation fits right in. So we're going to say mass transit.
Yes. So it just makes sense that we are moving towards how do we get us to and from places that we want to go to in an efficient manner.
Yeah.
And the freeways are just not it.
Yeah.
Being in personal vehicles are not it.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of those autonomous driving cars.
Yeah. So we can talk about that though, because that's so I talked about 5 goals. I told you 2 of them. The third one is innovation, AVs. The fourth one is expansion into new cities. We talked about that. And then the 5th one is something you definitely would be interested in, which is the career technical education program.
Yes.
To create or to add bus auto mechanics to that curriculum. We're going to start it next school year.
Nice, great.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're moving at warp speed on trying to get things done. Come on, man. But yeah, we're going to roll it out at probably all 5 CTE schools or 4 CTE schools to create a pipeline partnership to directly hire as soon as they get out of high school.
Come on.
Diesel mechanics.
Come on.
And even that's just on the operator side itself, on the mechanic side. But of course, like Dart has in-house HVAC, in-house welders, things of that nature that those CTE schools offer. That we're trying to
technology.
all those things, right?
Right.
And so ensuring that we are cultivating our youth
talent.
And like if you have not seen those CTE schools at Hillcrest, there's a new one opening up at right there at Big T. Like, I mean, it almost made me want to go back to school.
Wow.
And I really told them, you all should like make this.
I need a tour.
You all should make this like the requirement, and like let kids if they want to go learn trigonometry, go back to regular school. But like, don't make this the option. Make this the mandatory. Go learn a trade or skill. They have partnerships with TI where they're doing soldering. Those kids are earning $70,000 a year as soon as they get out of high school.
18 years old, making that kind of money.
Yeah. And so, of course, Dart is in the mid-20s for the mechanics, so $25 an hour. So, but again, creating those opportunities. Those, but for the AVs, I think the AV technology is still kind of young and infant. But there are some opportunities for our circulators that we have in various cities that we're looking at rolling out pretty soon, too. So they're kind of like 9-10 passenger AVs that are kind of circulating around in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
In like the entertainment districts where it kind of makes sense.
Right.
At least to kind of introduce the technology to the system and to the region.
Right.
Of course, Waymo just came in a couple of weeks ago. And so, we're trying to stay ahead of the curve. with we got
We got
AVs, and so
to
yeah.
plan because
you know, gotta make it sexy, as we say.
Yes, make it pretty, make it interesting, but to sustain the growth that we're experiencing, because hey, everybody.
And we have to promote it ourselves. This is what
Yeah.
I've tried to do with the Riding with Randall series, and which is kind of sidetracked a bit because Randall riding all over right about now.
Which is for you guys to follow him and
Randall Bryant TX on all platforms
and get on these mass transit systems that we have and experience them yourself.
Right.
So I want
and comparing other cities. I again, like I said, I grew up taking dart. It wasn't a new concept when I joined the board. But like now, when I go to even go to other cities, it's like, let me see kind of what this experience is. What can we improve on?
Right. Because eventually we're going to get to a place where we're connecting to Austin, Houston, quickly, Denton, Oklahoma City. I mean, it's going to get there.
It has to.
So
there's just not enough lane miles acquirable
to accommodate all of it.
And there's not enough money to build the roads to sustain the growth that we're doing. And again, the warning signs.
They've been there.
Yeah,
yes, they are. Well, Randall, I do want to thank you again for coming on. It was a great conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I probably will follow up with you after the summer, after FIFA has gone, and see what's going on with DART and what headway has come about from the elections and changes that are happening as a result of that.
Let me just say for FIFA. So for FIFA, we're taking commuter rails on the TRE from Victory Station to Centerpoint.
Okay.
We're bringing in actually more commuter rails from commuter train cars from outside of Texas to help with that capacity.
Oh, good.
And then, if and when that fills up, we're doing bus bridges down I-30.
Okay.
And there will be shuttles at both to connect you from those stops directly to AT&T Stadium.
Okay.
So we're prepared for that too.
There you have it. All right. So I'm not sure if I'm going to have another impromptu show before the live series starts back in January on the 10th. So just look for any pop-up events that I do. Again, thank you for the short notice and willingness to come on and have this discussion about DART. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year.